This could change everything. Welcome into this edition of Seattle Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. We are going to examine some players from the world champion Philadelphia Eagles that could bring their championship mentality and mindset over to the Seattle Seahawks in free agency. We'll tell you who those individuals are coming up in just a matter of moments. Speaking of free agency, I want to know, who is the Hawks' greatest free agent signing of all time? And just so we're clear, we're not talking about a draft pick. We're not talking about a player they re-signed. A player that came from the outside that Seattle signed. Get in that comment section. Give me a name that comes to mind and let us know. The Philadelphia Eagles are world champions, defeating the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59. And on today's show, we're going to examine three different individuals from that Eagles roster that could potentially sign with Seattle in NFL free agency. And let me say this before we get to the names. I know a lot of you right away are going to jump right in the comment section and say, what cap space? They don't have any money. Well, all three of these players are not going to be guys you have to necessarily break the bank for. Seattle could pay all three of these if they decide they want to. Let's start with Mekhi Becton, who was one of the breakout players for the Philadelphia Eagles here in 2024. He got off to a rough start to his career with the New York Jets there in his first few seasons. Ends up joining the Eagles this year. And the Eagles, they had some problems on this offensive line of what they had to deal with when it came to moving guys around and with some of the injuries that occurred. And so Mekhi Becton, who had played his entire career as a tackle, they moved him over to the offensive guard spot, a position he had never played before, and he had great success and was a big reason why they ultimately ended up getting to the Super Bowl and winning the title. And credit where credit's due to Nick Sirianni and company for getting the flexibility out of Mekhi Becton to play that role. And I was talking to Mekhi Becton at the Super Bowl last week in New Orleans, and one of the things that was asked to him was, going forward, are you a guard? Are you a tackle? And he said, look, I am whatever I am needed to be. And right now they need me to be a guard, so I'm a guard, but he's open to potentially going back to playing the tackle spot. So in Seattle's circumstance, you obviously have Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas at your starting offensive tackle positions. And there is some concern about Abraham Lucas's health long term, rightfully so. You bring in Mekhi Becton, and you could play him at guard potentially. Maybe you move Abraham Lucas to guard and you put Becton at the tackle spot. Whatever it may be, you can make this work. You can find a spot for Mekhi Becton one way or another, and that should be very attractive to John Schneider and company when examining the possibility of signing Mekhi Becton here in free agency. We mentioned the breakout campaign he had. His numbers were really good this year, comparably speaking to what they were in years prior. According to Pro Football Focus, in 15 games played and over 900 snaps, he had an offensive grade of 75.2, a pass block rate of 63.6, and a run block rate of 74.7. I would think that in Seattle's offense, he would more likely be a guard, but you better believe that they would find somewhere to make it work for Mekhi Becton. He would be on that starting five for the offensive line one way or another, and I think could be a potential good fit for Seattle if they decide they want to sign him. So let's ask you in our pinned comment today, should the Seahawks sign Mekhi Becton? Type S for sign, P for pass, weigh in the comment section, and let us know. Today's show is sponsored by Tushy. Me in January, I'm going to eat more vegetables and hike more. Me in February, I just want my asshole to stop burning when I go to the bathroom. Tushy's bidet cleans up after all my BS. And I got to tell you, I have certainly enjoyed using Tushy. It makes me feel so much better, and you get so much cleaner. You get all the little stuff out of there that kind of just gets stuck sometimes, and keep your hands clean in the process. Tushy is the modern bidet attachment that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and butt health for life. Not to mention, you save on toilet paper, too. Instead of wiping yourself raw with toilet paper, Tushy gently removes 99% of bacteria while protecting your natural skin barrier thanks to one natural ingredient, fresh water. Tushy has two new ultra sleek bidet seats, Wave and Oasis, with front and rear wash to clean all those hard to reach places. The Tushy Wave and Oasis bidets easily attach to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing or electricity. They even have a quick release button to remove the seat for instant deep cleaning. There's still time to get your ass right for life. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at HelloTushy.com with promo code CHAT. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Hello Tushy, proud partner of Seattle Seahawks today. Next on our list, we go to the tight end position. We find C.J. Uzomah at this spot. Uzomah did not have a significant role in the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl run, but he will be available for cheap nonetheless. The former fifth-round pick by the Bengals in 2015 joined the Eagles in 2024 after previously playing for the Jets, and will be getting a Super Bowl ring despite a limited role this past season with Philadelphia. And C.J. Uzomah has been a guy that's been kind of a journeyman of sorts. People know that he's got talent, but hasn't always been utilized to the best of his capabilities. We've seen him play pretty solid at times, and the fact that he was mostly a practice squad player this past season because Philly was so good at the tight end spot they didn't really need him. He's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to potentially sign. And you think about this, where Seattle's at the tight end spot right now. We don't know if Noah Fant is going to come back or not yet. A lot of rumblings about him potentially being cut. And then you got A.J. Barner there, and A.J. Barner had a solid rookie campaign, and whether he gets elevated to the tight end one spot or they find somebody else that's going to be the tight end one spot, you're going to need some more depth behind Barner there. Uzomah could be a cheap piece, and also, I'll say this, although his numbers have been great the last couple of seasons, he is a pass-catching tight end. And although A.J. Barner was a pleasant surprise when it came to his pass-catching abilities, he is still primarily a blocking tight end. So maybe you bring in Uzomah as another receiving tight end option that could potentially be missing in this Seahawks offense next season. Should the Hawks sign C.J. Uzomah? Type Y for yes, N for no. Get in that comment section and let us know. Seahawks Today is your one-stop shop for all things Seattle Seahawks this offseason as we're talking daily news and rumors, sometimes 2 and 3 videos a day. We're bringing you live shows each and every Monday and Wednesday. We also have breaking news. If the Hawks were to sign one of these players, we'll be all over it here on the channel. We also have Q&A interactive mailbags and more, all right here on Seattle Seahawks Today. Subscribe now for free. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. YouTube.com/Seahawks TV. You'll be glad you did. Next up, let's go to the offensive line, and everyone knows the Hawks could use some help when it comes to offensive linemen. And let me introduce you to Nick Gates from the Philadelphia Eagles, and primarily a center, also experienced at the offensive guard spot as well. He was undrafted in 2018 out of Nebraska, ended up signing with the Giants, then joined the Commanders, and then he was with the Eagles this past season, a part of that Super Bowl championship run. And if we're going to be honest, when it comes to Nick Gates, he might have two phones. See what I did there? But he's not likely going to be a full-time starter wherever he plays next season, including in Seattle. And I think the hope is that Olu takes another step forward and solidifies the long-term prospects of him potentially being a quality long-term starter in the NFL. But you would like to have a good backup option, somebody to compete with Olu and to push him at that position, and you might get that with Nick Gates here. Although it was a small sample size from Nick Gates, just 96 snaps last year, his numbers weren't terrible. An offensive grade of 52.6, a pass block grade of 67.5, and a run block rate of 49.0. So with that, I'll say this, just kind of wrapping up some final thoughts here. These three individuals, I think that obviously Becton would be the biggest impact player among these three, and I think he'd be the one we'd be most excited about. But Uzomah and Gates, for getting some bargain buys, going to the grocery outlet and getting these guys on discount, I think could bode very well for Seattle here. And there's been some rumblings. I've seen it over the last couple of days from people that cover the Seahawks asking, hey, can Seattle follow Philadelphia's blueprint? Can they be the next physical team in the NFC to make some noise? And if you look at getting a backup like Nick Gates to make you feel better about the depth at the offensive line, if you look at adding Uzomah at the tight end spot and just getting some more depth and another pass catcher that could potentially get involved, especially in red zone packages, and then I add in Mekhi Becton, who is exactly what this offensive line could potentially need, then I'm starting to see some value. And we know that Seattle's not going to have a ton of money to spend. If you can do what Philly has done of finding some physical players without spending a ton of money, we saw what the Commanders did this past offseason, dramatically improving their offensive line without spending a ton of cash. The blueprint's out there. Let's see if Seattle can follow it accordingly. Who's a player from the Super Bowl that Seattle should sign? Somebody from this Eagles team? Maybe it's somebody from Kansas City. I know there's been a lot of talk, of course, about Trey Smith potentially. Who comes to mind that you'd like to see Seattle sign? Weigh in, let us know. If you made it to the end of today's video, that means you're a real one. You're a real member of the 12s. Spam 12 in the comments section of Tyler Jones. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time right here on Seahawks Today.